some of the most aggressive, powerful people in history had incredibly high levels of ambition, and they had to learn to control that on their rise to the top. That's how people become successful, is by their ability to channel their energy. So you have to be aware that the game is social, that the winners in life have a wider base of operation. They have more supporters, they have more allies than other people. You're not going to get very far in life if you're alienating everyone around you, right? You have to learn self-control. I mean, all my books are about learning how to control yourself. You're asking me how you learn to control yourself? It's baby steps, it's little things. I have all sorts of lessons in all of my books. Like, if you're angry about something, you don't act on your anger. You wait 24 hours, 48 hours before sending that email, before yelling at someone. These are little steps you take to learn to control that. If you're highly ambitious and you show too much of it, sometimes it's good to show ambition, but you need to show a certain amount, not too much to frighten people. Well, that's what these books are about. They're being self-aware that in a certain situation, you enter an office, 30 people, and you suddenly show that you want to be like the number one person. You're going to find your path really difficult in life. But if you show that you don't have any ambition, no one will respect you. So you have to hit that proper medium.
Got it.
And you learn how to do that. You learn by your mistakes, you learn by the people you've pissed off, that you've alienated, and you learn self-control.
Powerful.
I was on the board of directors of a publicly traded company run by an entrepreneur who was very successful, but who had no self-control. He couldn't control himself in an interview. When he was interviewed by a reporter, he would talk about his sex life. He had no ability to censor himself. And when he got angry, he yelled at people. He made so many enemies that he ended up destroying himself. It's a whole language that you need to master, is how your moods infect other people. And I tell people, experiment with that.
Yeah.
Normally with this one person, you're locked in a dynamic where you always are kind of reacting the same way. Try next time approaching them with a completely different mood. Think something differently about them. Suddenly force yourself to think that this person is really, really like good looking and exciting and seductive. And you'll see that you're thinking of them in a certain way will change how they respond to you.
Wow. As opposed to being defensive and guarded and reactive and angry.
Judgmental.
Yeah. And you said you do not judge other people, you accept them as they are.
Well, that's a key throughout the whole book.
You're not going to influence people if you're judging them, right?
That's the key through the whole book. The book starts with a quote from Schopenhauer, meaning that if you come across people who are bad, just think of them as toxic. Just think of them as a sort kind of mineral that you're encountering. That you're a scientist. People are all different. You're not going to change them. They are who they are because of their circumstances. And instead of judging everyone, learn to accept them and to kind of understand that you are fatal, you are flawed, and so are they. So kind of get rid of your superiority.
Yeah. Because that's not going to influence them. If you're trying to persuade them to do something, judging them and making them wrong is only going to make people more defensive, right?
Well, that's true. But the other point is your sense of superiority is usually not justified.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making the point in this book, the number one thing about human nature is that we tend to deny that there is such a thing. I'm not aggressive. I'm not narcissistic. I never feel envy. I don't have a bad side to me. It's the other people, right?
Sure.
Right. I don't have any of these bad qualities.
Wrong. We all do that.
We all, yeah. You have these qualities as well as anyone else. If you can be honest with yourself, you'll be a little more humble and realize you're not so perfect and not superior, which will make you less judgmental about other people. We live in a culture where people think you shouldn't have to put effort into something like love and romance. You should just be who you are, man. I don't have to put on a role. I don't have to play a game. That's manipulative, blah, 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 blah. No, I'm sorry. Love and romance is something that is almost biological. if you look at animals and mating rituals, they're incredibly elaborate. Seduction is a mating ritual. And so the worst thing you can feel is that this person isn't putting any effort into something. Let's just say it's from the woman's point of view. This man, he just shows up wearing jeans and his usual sloppy outfit. He doesn't comb his hair, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He takes me to the pub for dinner on our first date. You know, he's not thinking about me. He's not willing to put any effort into it. If he's not willing to put any effort into it, what's it going to be like 3 months down the line when he completely takes me for granted, which is what happens in a relationship? Am I not important enough, right? Whereas the ability to have a little bit of effort, to think of it as kind of theater and drama, and that there's nothing evil about it. So I'm going to dress nicely. I just have to be fancy. Just that I'm going to, I'm going to put some effort into how I look. I'm going to take her to a place that I'm not talking about candle lights and roses and that kind of crap. You can be creative. It can be somewhere that's scuzzy, that's on the wrong side of town, but it's different and it's appealing to, and you put some thought into it. There's a reason you're taking her there, right? If you're not able to let go of your kind of tightness when it comes to a woman, then something's wrong with you, man. Just let go. Spend some extra money. Spend the extra 10 quid that you might need to spend on taking her to someplace different. But it signals a kind of cheapness. And it's not about money. It's about a cheapness in your spirit, right? She's not worth, letting go. Okay, maybe you don't have that much, but my God, you have enough. It's not going to make, if you're that poor, then okay, maybe. But probably not. You can afford it. Show that it means something to you. Seduction is a language. It's not a language of words. It's a language of gestures that we're paying attention to. We're paying attention to people's body language. We're paying attention to their actions, to the things that they never say. So when you signal that discounts are so important to you that even on the first date you have to have a discount, you're signaling that there's something tight about you in your nature, and it's not very pleasant. Real confidence comes from actual actions, from your actual things you've accomplished, right? So, when you're 22, 21, it's hard to have that confidence because what is it based on? Maybe it's based, okay, maybe you're really good looking if you happen to have that good fortune and you can feel confident about that and you don't have to try so hard. All right, maybe that might work. Or maybe you're really good at sports, or maybe you're a really good dancer, or you're a really great singer, but it's based on something real. You have a skill. You have something that separates you. You have something that you can do, that you can accomplish. Because when you're 21, it's hard to have those. I look back on myself when I was that age. I had nothing. No wonder I got rejected, So it comes from what you do in life, okay? The finest sense of confidence is actually creating things and having success and meeting goals and achieving things and having a record of that, and maybe what goes with that is having some money, but it's not necessarily, because you don't have to have a lot of money and you don't have to be good looking to seduce. That's a myth that I try to explode in The Art of Seduction. Some of the greatest seducers, male and female, were not good looking at all. It's about psychology and it's about how you carry yourself. But the confidence comes from actually what you can do, not how you feel or what you say. Well, it is how you feel, but the feeling is based on things that you actually can do, skills that you have that separate you, that make you feel really confident, The thing it is that we evolved for hundreds of thousands of years before language existed, right? And our earliest ancestors depended on the group for their survival and getting along, and their powers came from observing other people and their body language. You could read it. So it's a skill that's wired into us, wired into our brains. It's a very unique skill that we humans have. It's just that you don't learn that. When you're a child, when you're 2 years old, you have it because your life depends on it.
you have to see what if your mother is loving you or your father is kind to you, because if not, you could be abandoned. Your life depends on it. You're great at reading that, and children are incredibly adept at picking up body language. So if someone is fake, if someone's an imposter, they hate being around children because children see through you, like radar, right? Because they're so attuned to it. You had that skill when you were very young, but you lost it because you became so oriented with words and you became so self-absorbed that you're not paying attention. But it's extremely important, right? So the whole body is involved in it. So you've got to first stop thinking about people's words so much. Because the one thing about words, unfortunately, is people can lie. They can say whatever they want. They could say, I love your screenplay. That was fantastic. You were great in that movie. I thought you were great, et cetera, et cetera. They can say anything to please, to flatter, to cajole you. But body language, man, it doesn't lie, right? So I talk in that book about the eyes and the fake smile. The fake smile is something you see every single day, but you're not paying attention. It's like, it's kind of tight, right? It's like, yeah, right? But a real smile, the whole face gets animated, and there's a little crinkly thing here as your face as it lights up, and your eyes light up. It's hard to even put into words, but it's there. You can see it. It's real. It's not faked. Knowing the difference between a fake and a real smile is really important in seduction, in business, or whatever. To know if someone is like, yeah, I like that idea. No, they don't really. They're saying that to please you. They actually hate your idea. You master that language, you can start deciphering all this bullshit people are giving you. The face, you can disguise it a little bit. Actors know that. But you know what you can't fake? It's your voice. If you're nervous, not even the finest actors in the world can fake that. Your voice betrays so many things about you. It betrays your weakness. It betrays your lack of confidence, or it betrays the other quality, etc. Right? So pay really attention to the tone of people's voices, to how fast they talk. People who talk fast are very nervous. Someone who's I know I'm probably talking a little too fast here. Sorry. My mind races, so I can't do that. Normally, I don't talk so fast. But, you talk slowly. You have a certain tone. You have a certain intonation that kind of reveals confidence, okay? Body language, posture. You were talking about pecking, right? When you go and look at a meeting of people in a business meeting, you'll see all the employees kind of leaning forward, nervous, and you'll see the boss kind of leaning back, arms crossed like this, I'm the powerful one. You come to me. I'm the leader. I'm the top dog, or she. It's a woman. I don't need to be like this. I'm like this. Body language reveals a lot about leadership qualities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you're at a party and you come up to someone that you're meeting for the first time and they're talking to you and you notice that their feet are angling away from you, that means that they're not really interested. They're looking for any moment to try and walk away and escape. They're not really into you. Whereas their feet are facing you. They're engaged. They want to talk to you, right? This is a whole art you can learn. And you can sit there and you can read it. And I give the story in Laws of Human Nature of a man named Milton Erickson, the founder of NLP and hypnotherapy, probably one of the most brilliant psychologists who ever lived. When Milton Erickson was 19 years old or so, he had polio. He nearly died. His entire body was paralyzed. The only thing he could move, the only muscle he could move were his eyeballs. Now imagine that. He was a young man with a very active mind. He can't talk. He can't do anything. All he can do is move his eyeballs a little bit. He was so bored. Can you imagine how bored you'd be like that? You can't read. You can't do anything. People would come in to visit him. All he could do was look at them and study them. He became the greatest reader of body language ever in the history of mankind. People said he was almost had ESP. He could read everything about who they were just by looking, because he ended up recovering. He became a psychologist. Because his life depended on developing this skill, he was going to just die from sheer boredom if he didn't learn how to read body language. He mastered that language much like somebody could master French. And it's an incredibly powerful language that I can't emphasize enough.
People often say the cliche of follow your passion in life, as if that's what's important, as if that's my message. And I find that word passion a little bit cringeworthy. It almost sounds like a perfume or something. It's very sentimental, and it doesn't have much meaning to me. So I never like to talk about finding your passion. I look at it very differently because, look, when it comes to mastery, when it comes to success, when it comes to gaining power in this world, it requires a lot of effort. It requires discipline. It requires hard work. It requires years of dedication, patience. And if all that is fueling you is your passion, you're never going to be able to have the energy and the patience to go through a lot of the monotony that is involved in building anything successful. So, to be honest with you, I actually kind of hate that word passion. So here's how I look at it. You have a life's task, something you were born to accomplish. It's something that resonates deep, deep within you. It's what we call a calling in the old sense of the word, your vocation, what you are called to accomplish. It reveals itself when you are a child by things you were drawn to, and then it becomes clearer as you get older that this is what I was meant to do. I'm somebody who's interested in the body. I need to go into sports or athletics or dance or whatever it is. Or I'm somebody that's into patterns and mathematics and that kind of world. That's where I should go into. Or I'm into the sciences and I'm kind of more of an abstract thinker. Or I'm a word person, I'm into writing and literature, etc. Or I'm an imagorist, or I like working with my hands. I don't care whatever it is. It's all beautiful, it's all equal, it's all great. Working with your hands is no inferior to writing a book. You discover what your life's task is. You feel a connection to it. You feel a love of it. Okay, so maybe love enters into the picture a bit there. And you feel that this is something that you were destined to create. And I advise people very deeply on many occasions how to find that. It's a process that you must go through if it's not clear to you. It was clear to me when I was 8 years old that writing was something that I so much loved that I had to do. And if I couldn't become a writer, I might as well just kill myself. It meant that much to me, okay? But now that you've discovered or you have a connection to what this is, to what your life's task must be, you then have to be a very patient and disciplined person. You have to be willing to go through an apprenticeship phase of many, many years of learning your craft, of learning all of the different codes and conventions that go into it, training with a master or training with a mentor, if that is possible, and trying different things and learning as much skills as possible. That requires being able to put up with tedium. So what happens is if passion and pleasure is your motivating factor in life. This is where I dislike that word passion. It makes me cringe. If passion is what motivates you, the moment something is boring, you're going to go, I don't feel passionate about that. I don't want to study the piano every day like that. I don't want to have to learn all these different steps in this particular sport. It's not passionate for me. It doesn't give me, it's not fun. Boy, is that dangerous, right? Because not everything in life is fun. To gain power, to become successful, to master something, it's going to require days and weeks of some kind of pain sometimes. So if you're feeling out of shape, for instance, and you want to get into shape, going to the gym and running and swimming, at first it's kind of painful and it's kind of boring, admit it. But then there are rewards for it. But if you enter into this going, I have to be passionate about running those laps to get into shape, you're never going to make it past the first day because your passion is going to die after day 3 when your legs ache and your muscles are tired and you're feeling kind of bored. What will see you through is not passion, but the sense of deep connection to what you were meant to accomplish, to a sense of destiny in life. This is what I was meant to do, right? I love this. I love it so much that I'm willing to put up with the pain involved, with the boredom, with the tedium, with the training, because I know that in a year or 2 or 5 years or 7 years, it will start becoming more fun. It will start opening up. Things will start happening for me, right? So just get over this notion that everything in life has to be pleasurable. And here's the following way I would look at it. Redefine your concept of pleasure. So playing a video game or watching a porn video on the internet might give you a weird kind of pleasure in the immediate moment. But then it doesn't really last. It turns into addiction. You have to do it every single day, and soon the effect wears off. The pleasure is rather minimal. But if you do something where the pleasure is like a week away, where the moment lasts a bit longer, you can postpone the need for immediate pleasure. So let's say you take on a project that's going to take a good month of your life to get done. And then it's not much fun, but then you work a month and it's finished. You go, wow, I learned something. I achieved it. I finished it. That gives me a kind of pleasure, right? Well, then imagine doing that over the course of a year. You decide to build a business. You decide to write a book. And then it takes you a year and there's a lot of pain involved, but you finish it. Wow, that's a pretty damn good sense of pleasure that it gave me, right? Imagine that it takes 5 years or 10 years that you actually build a business, that you actually create something that's really long lasting. Instead of just pleasure, it gives you a tremendous sense of fulfillment that is very deep and lasting. That is infinitely greater than any kind of momentary pleasure you can get in life, than anything that any kind of passion will bring you. So have that kind of long-term approach and see the success that you want in your career as something that's going to require several years. And how are you going to see yourself through the drudgery, through the day-to-day work? It's through a deep connection. It's through a sense of, it's going to take me 5 years, but the rewards are fantastic. I don't need to be passionate about it. I need to be consistent, and I need to feel connected to my work. That's how I would redefine that.
The stories that we tell ourselves, which comes down to the same thing. Because I've discovered in my meditation that the way the brain works is it's continually telling us stories about the world, about ourselves, about the way people are. And I don't mean stories it's literally what I'm saying. It's like constructed like a story. It has a narrative arc to it, right? This is what happened to me. And the story is constructed, and this is the result. And what the story I'm telling myself might not be the correct story at all, right? So being able to understand what really happened, what is actually the story that occurred there, is extremely important. And so you're hitting on the bedrock, which is extremely fundamental, which is, do you believe that you're capable of change? Do you believe that good things happen when you go through a process of learning and taking steps? Do you believe, going back to your belief, that you can actually get out of your patterns? Because you can be fooling yourself. You can be bullshitting. You can be saying, yeah, I kind of do. But deep down inside, you don't really want to do it because, believe it or not, your bad patterns give you a degree of comfort, right? It's something that you know. And to get out of them, you're suddenly thrust into the unknown, and that could be very frightening. So you could be holding on to these bad patterns. So the belief that I can change, I can actually do something different in my life. I can actually recreate myself. I can actually learn things. I can actually rewire my brain, because the brain is incredibly plastic. Even at the age of 40, 50, you can change your career. You can learn new skills. You know, I've reached 60. I'm constantly learning as well. The brain is insanely plastic. Do you believe that? Do you believe that you have the possibility to change yourself, to alter your patterns? That's probably the single most important thing right there. And to get people to believe that, as I said, there's 2 levels. There's the people who will shake their head, yeah, they'll read mastery, but it won't mean anything to them because they're afraid of the change. They're comfortable with a degree of failure, I hate to say,
Because if you don't try things, you never have to deal with the responsibility, the pain of failure, right? So you don't really want to change deep down inside. You don't really believe in Tom's number one bedrock belief, right? You're kind of fooling yourself. So it's not a fairy tale. It's not a bunch of a myth that we're creating. It's true that you have the power. The brain, if you just understood this one thing, that the brain is like a landscape. It's like a landscape out in the world that you see where things can be lush and tropical, or they can be completely arid and dead. You create that landscape yourself. You create the brain that you have by the degree of how you're open to experience, by the degree of how much you learn, by the degree of how many different sources of information you take in. You can create this incredibly alive brain that's very creative, imaginative, and how much more fun will your life be if you're open and you let things come in and new ideas come in. So it's up to you. You're the one that's creating your misery. It's creating your patterns. And it comes down to that bedrock one belief that you just mentioned.